For nonprofit boards, how do they prepare for the unexpected? The answer: think like you're prepping for a natural disaster.
It's an interesting comparison for sure. When FEMA, the Federal Emergency Management Agency, talks about preparedness, they focus on weathering the storm, being able to withstand or avoid the immediate impact.
So instead of a hurricane, it's a sudden CEO departure, or maybe a huge funding shift for a nonprofit.
Exactly. Just like you wouldn't wait to board up windows until the hurricane warning's already out, nonprofits can't wait for a crisis to address vulnerabilities.
Which brings up what CSR Communications calls the ostrich effect, right? They're all about change management for nonprofits, and this is a big focus for them.
Right, the ostrich effect. It's that tendency to kind of bury your head in the sand when tough conversations come up, or you see potential challenges on the horizon.
Like ignoring a potential flood, not the best strategy.
Not at all. CSR Communications even shared a story about a board dealing with this. They had this founder, 80 years old, super passionate, dedicated to the organization, but he did not want to talk about succession planning.
Oh, I bet that was a fun conversation.
Right. And the board chair was stuck. They knew they had to address it, but bringing it up felt like it would upset the founder, like they were pushing him out. Classic ostrich effect.
And a perfect example of why avoiding these conversations makes things harder in the long run.
Absolutely. And that's where proactive preparation comes in. It's not about seeing the future, but building the capacity at ACT when things change unexpectedly.
So less about knowing what will happen, more about being ready for anything to happen.
Yes. Think of it like this. FEMA has these 4 key areas: prevention, mitigation, response, and recovery. And they apply surprisingly well to nonprofits.
This is important for our listeners, so let's break it down. Say a nonprofit's blindsided. Their executive director just announces they're leaving. How do those 4 areas come into play?
Great question. Okay, so prevention in this case. That'd be like having a solid succession plan in place before it's needed. If a leader leaves, planned or not, the organization isn't left scrambling.
Makes sense. So then mitigation would be like minimizing the disruption once change in A is happening.
You got it. It's about having clear decision-making processes, communication plans all ready to go, minimizes impact on staff, programs, everyone. Like, imagine a nonprofit loses a major funding source out of the blue. If they've already got a diversified funding strategy, they're in much better shape.
Instead of putting all their eggs in one basket, they've got a safety net.
Exactly. Less likely to make huge cuts because they planned ahead. Now, response, that's about, well, responding well in those early stages of change.
So in our executive director example, a good response might be having an interim leadership plan ready and being transparent with staff about the transition.
Exactly. It's about projecting stability even when things feel uncertain.
This is all starting to fit together now. So lastly, recovery, getting back on your feet after the initial shock.
Right. For a nonprofit, this could be evaluating how the change impacted their work, adjusting programs or strategies, and ultimately becoming stronger because of it.
So it's not just about surviving, but using the change to become even better at what they do. But how does a board even begin to assess their change readiness? It feels kind of, I don't know, vague.
I get it. And that's where CSR Communications comes in with a tool to address this very thing.
Ooh, tell me more.
It's called the Change Readiness Index. Basically, it measures how well-equipped a board is to navigate change. Think of it like a diagnostic tool, but for organizational adaptability.
Okay, now I'm really interested. How does it actually work?
It's pretty straightforward, actually. Each board member and the chief executive, they all take a quick online survey, should only take about 5 minutes. It looks at 8 key characteristics that contribute to a board's ability to handle change effectively.
8 characteristics, huh? Like what?
Well, it gets into things like the level of trust between board members, how well they hold each other accountable, their comfort level with healthy debate, disagreeing in a productive way, and their ability to make those tough decisions when they need to.
So it's not just about having the right policies written down somewhere.
And the great thing about the Change Readiness Index is that it doesn't just point out the good and the bad, but it gives you actual steps to improve. They get this baseline report that highlights their strengths, weaknesses, and most importantly, actionable recommendations, especially in areas where they might be a little, well, let's just say ostrich-like.
So instead of being left with okay, we're bad at this, now what?
Yeah.
They get actual guidance.
Exactly, turning insight into action. And it doesn't even stop there.
Wait, there's more. They don't just hand you a report and disappear.
Not at all. The Change Readiness Index includes a follow-up survey 6 months later to track progress. Plus, CSR Communications gives ongoing, customized recommendations to keep the board adaptable and resilient.
This has been so insightful. We've really gone beyond the usual change management jargon and gotten to what it really means to be adaptable, especially in the nonprofit world where it feels like anything can happen.
You said it. It's not just about managing change, but leading through it. And that takes a different way of thinking, valuing open communication, diverse opinions, and that ability to adapt whatever comes your way.
So much to think about. And what really struck me was that urgency to be proactive. Like you were saying, and CSR Communications emphasizes this too, it's not about waiting for a crisis, but building that capacity for change before you need it.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. One of the biggest mistakes I think the boards make, leaders in general really, is waiting till they're in the crisis to start thinking about this stuff. By then, it's almost too late. They're just reacting, trying to stay afloat. So that's what's so interesting about this Change Readiness Index. It lets organizations check their readiness before anything goes wrong so they can spot weaknesses and actually do something about them.
Like a checkup, but for your organization's ability to handle change, which, let's be honest, most of us could use a little help with sometimes.
For sure. And the best part is, it's not just about identifying those areas where you could improve, but giving you actual steps to take. It's not just awareness, it's about making real changes.